Okay, so I've shared a little bit about my baby sister. Um, and I guess I thought before I go on further about my family, I would share, um, a little bit about myself. Um, Simply because I'm not here trying to bash my family, mostly just here to express how frustrating it can be. And, hopefully help others, as they call them, the black sheep of the family, feel maybe not so alone. Um, so yeah, that's mostly why I'm making these videos. But like I said, I'm not here to bash my family. So I will talk about myself a little bit too, and express or talk about myself and things of how how I'm like. Um, I wouldn't say I'm a terrible person though. Um, just that I guess you could say after having like days or sometimes months with my family just getting onto my ass a lot and having to stay quiet all the time. And that's a big part, just staying quiet, biting your tongue. But, you know, when they're on your ass every day for like a month, there's only so much a person could take. So, just to talk about myself for a little bit, admittedly, I am a human being, even though I, bite my tongue and I keep quiet and I just keep cleaning things. I, do eventually get frustrated and I very much so pop. um, I would say one of my grandest ways of communication is sarcasm. On those really, really, really bad days where my sister and my mom just are not letting up, I get quite very sarcastic. Um, as I said before, sometimes I will tell my sister that I can't read your mind. You're gonna have to communicate it to me. Um, which me being sarcastic about her being, well, not very nice at all, it just seems to make her more agitated, rather than owning up to it and being like, okay, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm expecting you to read my mind rather than express to you I'm upset about something. And, you know, the thing she's upset about is usually very stupid, to be honest, kind of like if I didn't put the clothes on the hanger right, or didn't position this thing right or that right. And, it's not just clothes on the hanger, it's other things too. She can be agitated with the way I put something up in the house. She'll sit on her butt in the house all day just being on her phone, but for some reason she feels she has the right and entitlement to tell me I'm putting away things wrong. And those are moments where I get very tired of it, and I will look at her and say that, why don't you put it away yourself? Why do you expect me to clean up everything in here, and yet you feel that you have a right to tell me how to do it? And if it bothers you that bad, then why don't you do it? So, yeah, I get sarcastic, but I'm very sarcastic with honesty. No, nothing jabbing or trying to hurt them back. It's a bit of honesty sarcasm. And, it just seems to upset her, like I've offended her by asking her or suggesting that she clean something up too. I mean, she will really look offended by this, and it's like, really? Why? So, there's something about myself. I'm very sarcastic. Messages received from Dr. Wu. So yeah, I can be very sarcastic sometimes. Okay. I guess another thing about myself is Trying to figure out what's another flaw about me that I know I do. um, I guess that's not really a flaw. That's just being human. Like me getting frustrated and then getting very sarcastic. um, I guess I could. Um, hmm. Give me a moment. I'll figure out something. I guess I could just talk about things that I've done. I guess is a way to try to describe myself a little bit more. Um, I do care about people that are homeless. Anytime I have something on me, and I'm granted a chance, I always, always give something to them if I can. Um, if I have a few extra bucks in my wallet that I'm able to spare. Because honestly, I know sometimes money can be tight. You have to take care of yourself. And just because you have money in your wallet does not mean it is yours. It's probably your phone bills, it's probably your groceries. But every now and then you have a little extra cash, and it is okay to spare it. It is not having to go to your phone bill or anything, and everything's taken care of. Uh, you know, so I do. I always give something. And, sometimes I don't have money to give, which is more often the case. But if we just gone grocery shopping and, I have some food with me, which this has happened before, I'll grab some of my items and I'll give it to them. Like one time it was meat sticks I gave to somebody who was homeless. Simply because, I'm sure they'll appreciate anything they can get. Food, money, water, and I've given bottles of water too. There's actually once a woman when my family was at Taco Bueno. I mostly just sat and talked with her, or mostly just let her talk. Poor thing. I mean, she was talking as if no one had talked with her in a long time. She had a lot to say, poor thing, and I just let her keep talking. Um, so and I went to the menu of Taco Bueno, and I let her know she could get anything she wanted. All she ordered was a small, tiny tostada. Um, but I bought her the tostada, and she just told me so much about her life, and I just sat and I prayed with her, and uh, I don't know how that woman's doing. I have not seen her ever since. It was really strange. Just saw her that one time. Um, all I can do is hope that God watches out for her and blesses her. It's very hard when you see a human being going through something hard, and you want to do everything in your power to help them, and you barely have even any power at all. Pretty much all you can do is offer some money, offer a meal, and pray with them, and hope to God that prayer will be enough. So yeah, you know, so that's another thing about myself. Another thing is I do very much so care about animals. Um, in fact, sometimes I care about them so much I actually do have a very much difficult time occasionally eating meat. I I actually do start feeling a little guilty from time to time. But it's difficult. I think once you've been eating meat your whole life, it's really difficult to think about the idea of not eating it. But I do have such a care about animals that from time to time, it kind of crosses my mind that this steak was once a cute, adorable little cow with these big eyes that could look up at you, and then it breaks my heart slightly. I'm just like, oh God, I'm eating a cow. Um, you know, so I do have a care for animals to the point that I don't know if I can stop eating meat altogether completely, but um, I do, care about them so much that I actually do start feeling bad occasionally. But I do care a lot for the, typical animals that you would assume people would care about: dogs, cats, birds, little ferrets. They're cute, adorable little animals, and you weren't raised eating them, so it's not even going to cross your mind to do so. Um, like it would do with a cow, it's a little more difficult, mostly because you're raised, and sometimes your brain wants to rewire, and it's a little difficult rewiring it. Um, but yeah, some of the moments that I've had to care for animals, occasionally you'll see an animal that seems to be running around loose, and you can't tell if it has an owner at all. Um, I'll toss food for it just to make sure it had something to eat that day. Um, like the last encounter I had pepperonis, so I tossed it, tossed a good chunk of my pepperonis to the little dog just to make sure they would have something to eat that day. And I kind of had to toss them because, when they don't have an owner, they're very skittish, and it usually takes time to gain these animals' trust. And we were only running through that neighborhood once, so I did not have time to gain those animals' trust. But not that I haven't had incidents where I have had that time and things like that have occurred. Such as one time when my family we were living in an RV, and there was a pack of dogs, just three dogs, that my mom assumed was a mother and her two puppies, full grown now. And the mother, I felt so bad for her. She had this collar around her neck that was clearly put on her when she was younger, and now her, it was, it just was not good, and it was clear that that thing was going to have to be cut off. Um, it was digging into her skin and clearly, leaving a bad wound. Uh, I was, I believe, 15 at the time, 15 years old, and, all we had was cats, so I would take the cat food. And these dogs would come over here from time to time. Uh, well, they would go over there where we live from time to time because they knew they were going to get food. Um, and, I guess you could say I have had a connection with animals because I was the only one that they would come near. They would not go near my family, but for some reason they would trust me. Um, so they would come up to me. They would let me pat their heads. They would let me stroke them. They'd let me bond with them a little bit. And it came for the time for me to try to cut the collar off the mom, um, which I was not completely successful at. I had cut it a little bit, but it was enough now that it might start tearing off on its own, but it was not completely done all the way. So, but my point is that there has been times an incident like this incident where I had time where I could gain trust with these animals. Um, and I had time to try to help them. I had time to make sure I could keep them fed and bond with them a little bit. And I did put my best effort into caring for them, making sure, at 15 years old, what I could do at least, doing what I could. Um, I would say that I'm very overly empathic to people, very sympathetic and connective to the point that it is uh, where I've been taken very much so advantage of. Um, like growing up, I felt so bad for my mom with her having dad as a husband where he just is not loving. He was an asshole, and I knew what he was doing to me and my siblings, and I could see how upset my mom was with the way he was treating her. Not that he would beat her ass, but we did. But I also saw how, just cruel he could be. You know, um, So I guess you could say I was empathic and sympathetic and just felt like I had to try to fix my parents' marriage. And part of that was because it was kind of put on me to do so. Like, tell your dad this, tell your dad this. And me being someone so just empathic and sympathetic to people wanted to help their marriage and wanted to make them feel better. So when you're told to do this or do that, in a sense, having a door open to try to help, um, you just do the best you can with it. Uh, and that's where I mean that sometimes I would let it. That's where I would be taken advantage of. I think people knew I was a very empathic, connective person. So there was a lot of times people would come to me with their tears and their problems, but the moment I needed help or I needed to just talk to somebody, they would cut me off completely. They wouldn't talk to me again. They just pretend I didn't exist. Um, so, I see instances now from the past where I realize I was very much so taken advantage of, and, um, they knew I was going to care and they were going to take advantage of it. Uh, but they didn't want to get close where I trusted them because it might mean they'd have to be a friend right back to me instead of me just being their friend all the time. Um, so yeah, I have been very much so taken advantage of. Not everyone I have known that has done that to me. There's a lot of also people that I do know that the moment I open up to them, they've been there for me. I'm more cautious now about who I open up to and about how much I sympathize with people. Because I guess you could say I've learned and I've grown up now, and I realize you cannot sympathize with everybody because some people, they are just there for the attention and they enjoy the attention you give them, and they really don't give a shit about you. So I've learned to be very careful about who I comfort. I'll be there for them, but the moment they ignore me because um, I need help, I need a friend too occasionally. I need someone to talk to. I may be sympathetic and empathic, but other times I am a human being and I need a little human connection too. Um, which selfish people do not want. And after they won't be there for me the way I'm there for them, I do not try to be in that person's life anymore because I realize they really don't give a crap about me. So I guess you could say that I've learned it's okay for me as a person to keep being empathic and sympathetic to others because that's who I am. But I've also learned to not let myself be taken advantage of. And those that have been there for me when I need them, I keep them very, very close. And I love those people dearly. They also still know I'm going to keep being there for them. So when they're having a bad day, they always still come talk to me because they know I'm going to be there. Um, the only ones that won't talk to me anymore are the ones that just want me to be there for them and not there for me for even one moment. So I've learned to uh, grow up and be cautious about that and show some more self respect to myself to, not allow people like that to be in my life anymore. Um, yeah. And I guess I want to say that because I know some people, they think because you're empathic, it means that you can be taken advantage of. Uh, in general, maybe when you're younger, that's the case, because you haven't learned yet how just, excuse my language, but how fucked up people can be and just mean. I think when you get older, though, you learn a lot more. You become a lot more wise, and if you stay compassionate even after going through that, then you're a very strong person. You're very strong and courageous, and know that not everybody's messed up, and you're just doing your best to make the world a better place. But I also think that as you get older, also means you don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of anymore. So being a tender heart does not mean you're going to be taken advantage of. It does not mean you're going to be weak. It does not mean you're going to have the most heartbreak than anybody else. Um, you might at first when you're younger, but I think as you get older, you get more wise and you start learning to be sympathetic towards yourself too and understanding to yourself and stand up for yourself. So I think that's a misconceived thought about people with compassion. Is to think that they're weak or they're taken advantage of the most. Um, I think when you're new in the world, yeah, you do because you don't know that not everybody is going to be nice to you as you are to them. But I think as you get older, um, you start growing some more intelligence. You grow a lot more backbone, and the thought that the compassionate are taken advantage of and that they have more heartbreak than anybody else is a myth. I really believe that's a myth because I personally do not allow myself to be taken advantage of. Um, and I know some may think they're taking advantage of me because they think I have a compassionate heart, but the truth is, I know when you're lying to me. I just choose that I enjoy my peace and I don't argue with liars because I know they're going to lie more, they're going to argue more, and they're going to get aggressive, and that is just not worth sacrificing my peace over. So I realize I can't fix you and help you stop being a liar. If you're a liar, you're a liar. So I usually just don't call them out on it until they start interfering with my peace. Um, then I'll call you out on it. um, and they don't in particularly like it because then they find out I'm a lot smarter than they thought I was, and I know a lot more than they thought I knew, and I have a lot more evidence than they think or had any idea that I had. So yeah, I just would want to say that because someone's compassionate does not mean you can take advantage of them. It also does not mean they're being taken advantage of all the time. I'm actually a very compassionate person. And I can't say I haven't been taken advantage of. I can't say that I'm still not being taken advantage of. I think that's just something that happens in life. You have somebody in your life that sometimes takes advantage of you, kind of like my family right now. Um, you know, that's just something that happens in life. But I don't think it happens more often to a compassionate person. I think that it happens about as much as it does to anybody else. Um, it's just compassionate people are trying to make the world better as best they can by showing some kindness, even when they know people are jerks. And I think the average person, maybe they just feel too drained or exhausted to do so. So I'm not judging people for not being that compassionate person. Um, I kind of feel like maybe you're just too drained and, just give you some sympathy. Um, Speaking of compassion, and that being the kind of person how I am, I guess I want to go on to talking about now about, um, pretty much how my friends talk about me. And I'm not saying this to brag or anything or like, look at me, I'm a saint. Because I don't feel like a saint. So that also makes me really uncomfortable when people look at me that way. Because I really don't feel like a saint. I don't feel that holy. I feel like I've got a good heart and that's good enough, but I don't feel like I really got some sort of saintly attitude at all. Um, so it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. Like, please don't put me on that high pedestal. It looks really high, and I'm scared that when you see I'm not that much of a saint, I'm going to fall from your pedestal and it's going to hurt. So, yeah, I don't like it too much when people do that. Um, but, it is strange, though, to hear things that my friends and other people have said to me when they hear what's really going on. Like, I go to a group that is for people with Asperger's, autism, and for their families too. So it's not just the person with the disability or special needs, it's for their family as well to, go there and connect and share thoughts and, how their week is, how things been going, and, how they function in life and such. Um and sometimes the parent wants to understand, what's going on in their kid's head sometimes. So there's a lot of times they will ask questions of the others that have Asperger's or autism, so they might better understand, like, why does their kid do a certain thing. It makes no sense. It's harmless, but it makes no sense. Um, I guess you could say, like, an odd habit of mine is I will go to the island in the kitchen sometimes, and I will circle around it for no reason at all. I don't know why, but the feeling of the stroking the island, it just feels kind of, I guess, strange and maybe sort of meditative, soothing way. So I end up circling around the island sometimes, just because the feeling of the texture of the island underneath my fingertips, uh, being stroked, it just feels that way. um, so their kid might have a really odd habit similar to mine or someone else, or they may have an anxiety, which was something I had learned when I first joined the group. Was there was others in there that had anxiety that was absolutely just illogical. It made no sense. Which it was very good to express that because, then we could laugh about it. Like, oh god, that is so freaking funny. Like, why the hell am I scared of that? It makes no sense. Um, a lot of my anxiety though comes with inside my head, but I also have ADHD, and I am diagnosed with anxiety. So, um, it is a true condition, and I have it. So, if anybody knows what it's like, I really do, and so I know what hell it can be, where you're literally your head is anxious for no reason at all. Um, and apparently my head will have anxiety without me. I did not know that could happen, but occasionally, I'll see these little what looks like sparks of light, and I had a doctor tell me that that's because my brain is having anxiety without me. Even if I can't feel it, it's having anxiety. So, that's the reason I start feeling dizzy from time to time, and I see these little sparks of light. That I refer to fairies because of the way they move. It doesn't last very long, though. It lasts maybe a few seconds. Uh, so I am diagnosed with anxiety. It's a real thing. Um, so as I was saying, I go to that group and I have opened up to them about, what it's like at home and what's going on. And, it just never ceases to make me go, wait, what? When, inwardly I'm like, what? When I get expressed back to what they think of that about me. Um, they've honestly said that they think I'm handling it very maturely. This is not just the Asperger's or autistic people. These are the people that with no disability at all. They think I'm handling it very maturely. They think that I'm doing really freaking well, to be honest, because they think most people that go through situations like mine, they don't handle it that way. They're probably more stressed and more angry and not, just not a very good attitude about it, which I personally wouldn't blame them because that can be frustrating, but they think I'm handling it well because I don't seem to hate my family. I love them. The only thing is I wish they would get help. I really wish they would get help because I want to see them be better. I want to see them have a truly happy, fulfilling life is what I want to see. Um, it doesn't make it not frustrating. It really is, but I don't hate them, and I don't wish the worst upon them or anything bad at all, really. I, just wish they would get help and be able to live happy, fulfilling lives. Um, and I guess that comes to a shock for people because I guess they were expecting if you're going through that much hell in life, then you might want the worst upon these people, but I don't. I just, wish they would get help so they could live happy, proper lives and true inner peace rather than lashing out and getting angry at people and blaming them for things that are nothing to do with what's going on inside them. I have some other friends, and one in particular I'm thinking of that, I've shared with her things that I'm going through, and no, this is not the group. She's just a friend I have. She's very much a cowgirl and into her western, and it's like really weird. Here I am with my bandana, my biker, and sometimes hippie look, and here she is, this cowgirl, and yet she's one of my best friends. I absolutely love her. I refer to her as my sister. Um, and her along with a few other friends. Sometimes they've told me, sometimes you tell me these things you go through, and I don't understand how you're still smiling. They're like, if it was me, I would go crazy. I wouldn't be happy at all. And you are so happy and you're so bubbly. I have been referred to as bubbly. um, as I said, though, I'm not saying these things to brag about myself. I'm just saying this is, like how my friends and other people perceive me when they get to know me and such. Um, and, it always, every time I hear it, my head really does go, wait, what? Because I don't feel like I'm in particularly anybody special that is just um I guess I just don't see how I get looked at that way. I guess to me this is just my life and it's just the way I've chosen to look at it. Um so the idea that other people do different, I guess I don't see myself better than them or them better than me. I see it as we're just different people and we've learned to cope differently. I know what pain feels like, so I chose to be nice and kind because I didn't want to put anybody through that pain. And other people, I think sometimes they just chose to cope differently. Their pain is so bad, the only thing they know how to do is release that pain out, whether it be through verbally screaming or sometimes having an attitude. In a way, sometimes I see swearing and bad attitudes is just emotional blood. When you get a wound physically, it's bleeding and, eventually it scabs up and it heals and sometimes you get a little scar there. Um, that's the way I see sometimes sarcasm and bad attitudes and swearing. I see it as just verbal, emotional blood. See, when you're wounded in your heart or emotionally or even mentally, you've been wounded because someone's, you know, um, manipulated you or played head games with your head or taken advantage of you or even as far as, molested you or something or maybe something else. But you can get emotional and mental scars from that, mental wounds. Um, and there is no physical blood to show you've been wounded when that happens. So when someone's having an attitude or they're cussing up or They're being very sarcastic, such as myself. um, to me, those are just that's emotional blood. It's their mouth pouring out the wound that they feel inside. So, that's why I say it's an emotional blood, because it's blood you can't see. You can't touch it physically, but it's still going to make itself known somehow that you're wounded. Um so yeah, that's how I see it. Um which is why I think it's sad when people get mad immediately when someone's having a bad attitude. Yeah, that person's not being very nice, and they probably should learn to have better coping skills, but the likelihood is they are having a bad day. They're having a very bad day. Probably couldn't pay their bills, and maybe they weren't able to make sure their kids had breakfast that day, and they're very stressed out. And they've probably been going through a hard time for more than just that day. It's probably been a week, month, maybe a year, and they finally can't take it anymore. And that wound is starting to gush out. And I never get angry with those people. I still remember some people that have gotten very snippy and angry with me, and the first thing out of my mouth sometimes is, "I'm sorry if you've had a bad day, but please try to calm down a little bit and know that I'm not here to hurt you." Because I want that person to know that I can see you're hurting. I can see it and I know it, and I want you to know that so that you don't feel so alone right now. But I also want you to know that you're lashing out at me too, and I really had nothing to do with it. So please don't lash out at me like I'm your enemy. And realize I really do care enough that even though you're a complete stranger, to say, I can see you're hurting. So for you to know you're in a safe place. Um, you know, um, I think most people, though, they lash out in their stress even sometimes when they don't know why they're feeling stressed, which is why I think it's a good thing to go into one's thoughts sometimes and just stay in a quiet place until you can understand why you're feeling what you're feeling. I personally do this. Sometimes I'm feeling very, very agitated and or very stressed or very hurt. And sometimes I don't know why, because I've been ignoring that hurt for so long. So I have no idea why I'm feeling hurt. I'm like, why is it when I'm around this person I feel hurt? Or why is it when they said this it made me feel angry? And, I'll have to go into a room because I make that practice too, to ignore my own feelings and thoughts like people in general seem to do. Um so but I don't try to, but I try but sometimes I do try to listen to those thoughts and feelings and not brush them off. Because I don't think it's healthy, even though I've made a bad habit of doing so because that's how I grew up. Now that I'm older, there's things I try to put into practice, like not ignoring why I'm feeling hurt or angry. Sometimes I will have to sit and be like, well, why does it annoy me when something heavy drops? My dad always says, miss me. And it's because my dad has always been self centered. And I'll have to go into a room and, just stay in a quiet place and be like, why does this annoy me? And actually think on those thoughts until I really feel and find the answer of why it annoys me. And that answer is you comes to be, well, because he's very self centered. And because he's so self centered that even when something heavy falls to the ground or something like glass falls and breaks, his first thing out of his mouth is missed me. It's always self centered. It's never, are you okay? Did anybody get hurt? Did something hit someone? No, it's very always self centered and miss me. He does not even ask about you if you're okay. His immediate response is you knowing that he's okay and you missed him, and absolutely no regard or care that, you know, Something heavy almost fell on your head. There was even once something heavy really did fall on my head, and it was one of his karaoke machines. It fell on my head, and his first response was, "Miss me." And it was moments like that I had to go to my room and, without lashing out or something so much, I just go to my room to think about why did that make me angry, and I realized why. It's because he's very egotistic, narcissistic, very self-centered, and didn't think about anybody else but himself. Um, and there's other moments too where somebody will say something or do something and it hurts or it agitates me, and I'm not really sure why sometimes because I have made a practice too much to ignore my feelings. I'm older now and I try to make a practice more to pay attention to them, which is taking a little bit then to understanding my own feelings. And, I would suggest that practice for anybody. You're starting to feel stressed, angry, hurt. Just go to a place that's comfortable and quiet, sit down, and really listen to yourself. Like maybe you're in the habit of listening to others and listening to them talk to you and you comfort them. But do the same for yourself. Listen to yourself, comfort yourself, and really get to the knowing what it is that's bothering you. And be there to comfort yourself and say, it's okay that bothers you. That's not okay people take advantage of you. That's not okay for people to not care about you. That's not okay for people to be selfish. That is okay that you feel you deserve better. Um, and I would say it's very useful because it helps you learn your self worth and earn some self respect and self love, which I believe everyone deserves. Um, I also think it makes life a lot more less stressful when you listen to yourself and actually be there for yourself too. It helps you open up to others eventually, because once you can acknowledge you matter, then you start opening up to others and you actually start making real friends that care about you. At least that's how it's been for me so far. So, I would highly suggest if anybody has problems, first start listening to yourself. It really, really helps a lot. At least, that's just my suggestion. It really helps with me so far. So I hope it would help anybody else as well. Yeah, so I guess these are some things about myself. That I do. Um, um, I guess another thing I could say about myself is I do very much so practice spirituality. When I say spirituality, I don't mean religious. I mean I grew up in a religion, but I let that go slowly but surely over my life. Um, some of the things I do is I have a deck of tarot cards. I kind of hope to get a crystal ball one day. But for now, I do not have a crystal ball. They're kind of expensive. They're really expensive. Um, and my tarot cards I got were actually at half price bookstore. Um, I also have a deck of homemade tarot cards, is a deck I made myself. Um, because at the time tarot cards fascinated me and I was curious how they worked. But I could not find any at the time that resonated with me, so I made my own. Ones that wouldn't seem confusing to me, ones that I could personally myself read because, I made them myself, so personally I'm going to resonate with them. But, I did find a deck of tarot cards, actually, that I did resonate with. I just connected with them. I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it other than I saw them and it was just like I knew these ones were going to work for me. Like these were ones I could connect to. And it did, but I like testing things out first. I don't like, want to buy something that's not going to work. for me personally. It might work for someone else. So, I did. I opened the box. They're all used, so it's already an open box. And, I, thought of a question I might want to ask the tarot cards. Like, something simple, like, how was my day? Something that if it, I would already know the answer to. And, like, if I pulled out a card with a sunshine on it, it's like, been a great day. I would have been like, no. uh, but the card that came out was of two dragons, sort of in a. I guess the card kind of meant dueling thoughts. And that really was going through my mind that day. There was, a lot of complicated thoughts. And I was like, okay, these cards work. These are my cards. I could just feel it. I knew it. And I'm like, I'm getting these cards. So I did. I got myself some tarot cards. I also like pray every day. It was a habit I picked up to do when I was still Christian. I prayed every day when I would wake up, and I learned to, talk to God when I was having frustrations or a good day. And, if that day was bad, I learned to, go to God and be like, okay, this is very frustrating, God. And other times something good may have happened, and I would just be like, thank you, God. I like this. I really needed this smile today, so thank you. I didn't just complain to God about bad things and let him know I was frustrated. I did take the time to always say thank you too for the good things that would happen in my life. Um, so yeah, I very much, and it worked for me, and that's why even when I'm no longer Christian, I do pray, and I think that's what the difference is like for me to be spiritual now rather than religious, because when I was still Christian, um, even though I wasn't judgmental, I did feel like everybody should believe in God and everybody should call God God and everybody needs to convert to Christianity and their life will be so much more peaceful. That's what you're raised to believe when you're Christian, even when you're going through your own complications and wondering, why is my life not perfect though I believe in God and I'm praying every day? And spirituality, it changes so much. And I don't think that means that you can't have a religion if you're being spiritual. I think it's just, it answers a lot more for you. Like, if you have a spiritual path while you're in Christianity, you might take the time to realize that bad things just happen because they happen. God's not testing you. You're not doing something wrong. You're not praying enough or anything like that. It just sometimes bad things happen. I do not practice Christianity anymore, but prayer still works for me, and I still believe there's a God. So I personally, um, practice it. And I think that's another thing that's different about being spiritual compared to keeping a religion. Because I do not feel that my spiritual path is best for everyone. I feel everybody has their own spiritual path and it works for them. So if someone's Christian, I respect that. That's your path. You feel happy there, you feel comfortable there, that's working for you. I will respect that and I will be happy for you that you are following what resonates with you. That includes every religion. If you're Buddhist, if you're, what is it called? Sheep? If you're Catholic, if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, or some other religion I don't really know about. Those are like the few I know what they're called. So, and pagan. If you're pagan, if we're Wiccan, like I said, that's only the few I know of. So if there's more, I know there's more. I just don't know what your religion's called. Forgive me then if I haven't mentioned it. I just don't know about it. um, but if it works for somebody and it resonates for them, I respect that they're happy and that they're living their path. Um, so I think that's a difference between being spiritual and having a religion. When I was Christian, I wasn't pushy about it. I felt like if I just showed the love of God, people would eventually come to God. So that was my belief. I didn't think I needed to be pushy. I felt like people would just come to God. So I was very much not your, at least what I think a typical Christian was. At least the ones I knew, I wasn't typical. Um, but being spiritual, I'm able to let go of that and realize, some people call God fate. Some people call God um, the universe. Some call him love. Some call him goddess. It's all the same energy force. What exactly is that energy force? Maybe I'm not fully certain and I can't fully comprehend it. What I do know is so far I do feel peace. I do feel like there's something out there and I can feel it. As for it being all powerful, I don't think it's all powerful. I think it goes for the best possible outcome. Um, I think that's why sometimes bad things happen. That was the best possible outcome that could have occurred. There was worse possible outcomes that could have occurred. Does that mean that everything is the best possible outcome that could occur? I don't think so. I think a lot of outcomes have to do with our decisions and other people's decisions and the consequences of those decisions sometimes. So I think God's just an energy that is trying to work to get things to be the best possible outcome. And we can connect with that energy and I guess you could say communicate with it and try to feel what would be the best possible outcome. And that energy will try to guide you into that. Um, I do not think that this energy has so much control, though, that it keeps bad things from happening. I think it's there as a guide to try to help you, if you're willing to listen to it, to keep the least amount of bad things from happening in your life. But I think bad things also happen because it helps you grow. So I don't think this God energy or fate or universe or whatever you want to call it uh, could stop bad things from happening. I think sometimes that happens to help us grow because growing is also the best possible outcome for us. Because if we don't grow, well, then a lot more bad things happen. But if we can grow from bad things, then we're able to keep more peace in this world. Um, that doesn't mean that I think God creates bad things. It's just that I think bad things just happen. Sometimes there's not very much of a reason for it, but we can grow from it, which gives a better possible outcome. Or we can sulk or get nasty and mean from it, which creates not so good possible outcomes. So I don't think God has control over things, but I do think He's an influence. Um, so that's what's changed about me from when I was Christian to being now spiritual. I think you could call God whatever you want. um, Beforehand, it would have made me very uncomfortable if you called God anything else but God. uh, I wouldn't say I was bossy or cranky, though, and would have demanded it. A lot of Christians I knew, though, were like that. Like, yes, God. No, it's God. It's God. And it's like, okay, can you give them a break? They're just barely opening up to Christianity and, just let them sort of let their brain get used to this. This is a new environment. Trying to rush them into things and force them to be this way and that way so quickly, it's not going to be easy. In fact, it's going to put them in a mental breakdown and make you feel like you're obsessive and cultic and freak them out and make them run away, which is usually the case of what would happen. People felt uncomfortable with the Christians. They felt uncomfortable with the pastor, and it was like they didn't want to be there. Some people, though, they would stay. But I was not pushy. I mean, I felt like it was the right thing to call God God, but I'm very different now. I'm like, call him whatever you want. In fact, you don't even have to believe in him. I believe it's the same energy. So if you believe in fate, but you don't believe there's a God, to me, it's just the same energy. we've just presented that energy with a different name or title. Um, you know, the idea of fate is that things happen for a reason in your life and things just come to you in the moment that you need them. So, in a sense, that is a description of what some people think of as God. So, it's the same energy, we just decide to call it a different name. You know, and I'm not saying, and I don't want anybody thinking like I think that God's the correct name. No, I don't. It's just what I grew up calling God was God, so I'm more used to it that way. But, I have learned sometimes to refer to God as universe and sometimes as love. Um, which, was very difficult at first when I was trying to learn to train myself to be okay referring to God as other ways. Uh, but, I'm more used to it now, and sometimes I refer to God as universe, and I do refer to God as love or love energy. Um, and, so I just feel that, you know, whether it's fate or love or God or universe or the big powwow energy, whatever you want to call it. If it's whatever you want to call it, it's completely fine. I honestly don't think that energy, that God or fate really cares too much. You could just call God dude, and I think he'd be okay with it. Or, they also call God the goddess, and I think that's perfectly fine. I kind of think there might be a god and a goddess personally, because I mean, there seems to be a balance of that. Um, so there may be a god and goddess up there, and maybe there's more up there we don't know about or around us. Not so much out there, but all around us, because I think God's connected into all of us. So I guess it's okay though if you believe God is way up there somewhere. It's perfectly fine. I think that's a big difference though between me from when I was Christian to being spiritual. I don't practice things now in a religious way to try to prove my worth. Now I just practice things that I resonate with that make me feel connected to that energy, and that one is prayer. Secondly, just being loving and caring to people that makes me feel connected to that energy. Um, and yes, being a practicing psychic and medium and an empath. I don't think I really try to practice being an empath. That one just kind of comes naturally. So, yeah, I don't really have anybody to tell me I'm an empath. I just kind of resonate and related to a lot of things that were on those tests to be an empath. Uh, Quite a bit, actually. I can't say. By the way, an empath is when you can feel someone's emotions as strongly as your own. Sometimes you even feel one's sickness as strongly as your own. I can't say I've ever felt sick, but I can say ever since I can remember, um, I guess I could have been a little telepathic too when I was very, very young. I knew word for word what somebody was going to say before they said it and what tone of voice and everything. And it was always very weird growing up because, I mean, it was just so weird because exactly how I knew they would speak, they always did. It was the weirdest damn thing. And I'm really glad I don't really have that ability anymore. That was really weird. I didn't go crazy or anything. It was just very weird. But being an empath, I always felt all the same to what somebody was feeling. I also knew when someone was always lying to me. I just knew. Um, and I did have moments where I would just get upset out of nowhere, and I didn't understand why. I mean, I would feel happy out of nowhere sometimes too, and it was like it didn't make sense. Uh, but I kind of just, when I was still Christian, I just felt like God told me, it's because you can feel what other people are feeling. Someone could have just walked down the street right now. You're just feeling what they feel. Um, so just focus on what you were feeling beforehand, and that's how you keep a balance between what you feel and what they feel. Uh, and this was before I ever heard of anything of an empath, before I even learned anything about psychics. I didn't know this was a gift. I that I didn't know this was a psychic gift. Not till I started studying psychics, and I was like, oh god, that makes so much sense to me. So I do feel like that was God communicating to me. I do feel like I probably am an empath, and I think that moment with God gave me enough time to be able to balance myself being an empath, to be able to decipher between my emotions and others. Um, and it gave me a chance to actually have some peace and quiet of mind. I actually read quite a bit about empaths, and it seems they have a very difficult time separating the two, and they hate it. They hate having their gift. They hate being able to feel what other people are feeling, and they kind of just want to have their own peace of mind and thoughts. I think that moment, though, gave me a lot of time to where I could have that. Uh, now I can still tell when people are lying to me, and I can still read people very, very, very well, but not everybody. There has been some people, as I say, they get under my radar. I don't know how, but I can't sense anything off of them. I can't feel anything off of them, and they do. They're just under my radar. I can't read them. Um, but so I guess having that enough practice, since I was 16 to be able to uh focus on my own self at that moment and my own thoughts and feelings, it gave me a chance that by the time I knew what an empath was, uh, by then I wasn't feeling agitated out of nowhere. I wasn't feeling happy out of nowhere anymore either. I was um, more in tune to my own emotions and thoughts. But it didn't disconnect me so much to the point that, after seeing somebody once or a few times, I could still read them pretty well. But it's not so overly connected into a person now where their emotions might bombard me. uh, so yeah, I think that's been good for me. So I am a practicing psychic. I am a practicing medium. Um, so which was something I definitely didn't do as a Christian, but I think that's a lot to do with why I slowly, stopped being Christian. Because one, when you're a medium, I and you grow up in Christianity, they say that only psychics do that, and they do that deliberately communicating with the devil. Um, Being I was very much into prayer and reading my Bible and doing the best I felt God wanted me to do, I clearly was not communicating with the devil deliberately. So, I had to make a decision right then. Do I trust God or do I trust people? And I made the decision that I was just going to trust God and what I felt at that moment. And that was, clearly being a psychic or a medium was not of the devil and not deliberately communicating to the devil, because I certainly wasn't. Um, so clearly somebody was wrong, and, I was always taught never doubt God, so I didn't think it could be God that was wrong, so I just, trusted my feelings at that moment, and that's slowly when I started learning more about psychics and mediums, empaths, and all other kinds of abilities I didn't know were supposed to be psychic abilities. Some interesting stuff there, actually. But me personally, I would just say that I'm a psychic, an empath, and a medium. Um, I also have the gift of, I think it's called clairsentient, where you can smell spirits. I do not hear anything audible, though. I do not actually hear anything. So I do not have that ability. Um, Neither do I hardly ever see anything. Um, so I don't really have that ability. Um, so yeah. Do I have the ability to where I can see if I wanted to? Yes, I believe so. I do, because there's been a few things sometimes that have happened when I've grown up, and I'm sure everybody's got their own ghost story to tell where you've visually seen something. So I do think I do have the ability that I could if I wanted to, but I really don't want to. I really, really don't. So I do not try to dabble into practicing at seeing any spirits or ghosts or any of that. I don't want to see it. I kind of like to have the delusion that I'm alone in a room sometimes when I'm going to sleep at night. um, do I think I also have the ability to have telepathy? Probably so, especially with what I mentioned prior, where I could know what somebody was about to say and what tone of voice, and what way they would say it. Um, and that was just weird. If I were to develop a little telepathy now, I don't think I would mind. I think I would be perfectly fine with it, but I don't think I would ever want it to the point that I had it when I was young. Like, dear God, that might have been as young as 12, 14 years old when that would happen to me. That's pretty much the last I ever remember ever having that problem. I would definitely not want it to that point again. That was like, oh God. You almost want to look at people and be like, please don't say it. I already know what you're fixing to say. So just don't. But they do. So it was literally like everything in repeat. So I do think I do have the ability to be telepathic, but for the fact of having peace of mind and things not being weird, I do not want to be able to have telepathy at least to that point again. I don't think I would mind having a little bit. In fact, I kind of wonder if that's where some of my empath abilities derive from, is slight telepathic. And that's why I can tell when people are lying to me, and how I can tell what kind of person you are if you're going through struggles and whatnot. I think that a lot of it has to do with that. um, but, so I'm okay with that. This is something I can handle. This is something I can manage, but as for the point, what it was like when I was like 12, 13, 14 years old, and even younger than that, honestly, I don't think it stopped until maybe I was around 14, 14, 15 years old, which I'm glad, because it didn't bother me, but it was weird. It was really weird. So, I'm really glad it's not to that point then. I'm not really sure what, decreased that ability. I don't really know how completely these things work. I just know that if I have an ability, I have it. And I think usually what decreases it more, though, is the more you try to ignore it, to be honest. um, like when I was younger, I could see what I believe were spirits, and I did ignore it. And I don't hardly ever see anything now. And, when you're like 13, 12 years old, and you can literally feel a person's thoughts. You don't hear things audibly, but you can feel, and you just know the tone of voice and everything immediately. Um, then it's really weird. You're really gonna try your darndest to ignore it then. uh, so, I did notice that it seems like the abilities I don't really have anymore are ones that I really did my darndest to ignore. But I kept it at a point that it was. I think I got it to a point where it was balanced when I was around 21 years old, because that's when I started researching more. It explained a lot of things when I was growing up. And in case anybody's wondering, no, I do have a completely healthy mind. I have seen a psychologist. I have seen a counselor. They know my beliefs. They know my practices. I have not been diagnosed with anything of any delusions. So yes, I have a healthy mind. And I do understand when somebody is a psychologist, sometimes they do believe that you're going to see what you believe. So they may think that this is all in my head as I'm creating it because I believe in it, which I'm perfectly fine with. I'm not offended. I think that, that can happen. So, even though I really, really believe it's real, I understand what they believe is something at the same time. They can't curse, so I'm not offended by that at all. Um, but yeah, no, I'm not crazy. I'm not hallucinating. Um, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, Asperger's, and anxiety, but as for having any delusions or hallucinations or anything like that, or anything genuinely crazy, no, I do not have a diagnosis of that. I've been checked out on that. So, yeah, if nobody believes in what I'm, talking about, that's perfectly fine. That's your right to not believe in it. And that's the difference between my Christian self and the self I am now. I do not feel a need to convince you that I'm right. And I am perfectly at peace with what you believe in. That's fine. The Christian me would have thought you need to believe in God, but I'm not that way anymore. I feel like we all have our own personal path. You're on your personal path, and on your personal path you don't believe in stuff like that, and that's okay. So if it makes anybody feel any better that doesn't believe in stuff like this, according to some psychologists, they think that you will see what you believe, or you'll experience what you believe. So that makes you feel any better, you can just believe that I'm experiencing what I believe, and that's perfectly fine. Just know that yes, I've been to psychologists, I've been to a counselor. I do not have hallucinations or anything like that, or need any medication. Also, no offense to those that do. I know people um, that are like bipolar, and I've met people like on occasion that have issues and such, and I'm pretty sure my sister and my brother both, they had hallucination problems. They've told me a couple of things that they've experienced, but I will not go into sharing that. I don't feel that's any of my business. My point is, though, is that just because someone has a hallucination does not mean they're a bad person. It does not mean they're crazy, in a sense. It just means that your brain is playing tricks on you. That's what it is. But it doesn't stop you from being a good person or caring or giving, or sometimes being the most fun, entertaining person anyone's ever met. And I mean that by your personality. um, so, I have a bipolar friend, and he's one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. My sister, who is no longer talking to us, I very much highly suspect she is bipolar. And I can't even begin to go on to describe how intelligent she is, too. She's very intelligent. I still remember when we were like, I don't know, could have been uh, 4 and 6 years old, uh, maybe a little older. Could have been 5 and 7. But there was a a magician there, and I still remember her leaning into my ear and telling me exactly what the guy was doing, and I didn't verbalize it because I was trying to be a nice sister, but inwardly, my 7-year-old self was thinking, please shut up, you're ruining everything for me. I want to live in my delusion that I don't know where that little red ball went, and you were telling me everything. So she was very, very, very intelligent. I mean, here she is, what, 5 years old, and she even knew what that magician was doing already, and she was telling me exactly where they hid it, what that thing did, and everything, and I was just like, shut up. Inwardly, I was like, shut up. And her intelligence proved very valid even when we grew up. I mean, even when she was like 12 years old, she was still very smart. I mean, she was scary smart, to be honest. And then as we got older, again, still very intelligent, very smart. Um, and she was dyslexic too. So, if somebody has hallucinations, don't think that I think that's a bad thing, or that I judge you at all. Um, or that I think it's impossible for one to be psychic with that. I think it's very possible, actually. I think it's just when you have disability of some sort. It's deciphering between the two. Um, like I have disabilities, and sometimes I have to decipher between the two then of what's a vision and what was, my ADHD imagination kicking in. And that wasn't too troublesome for me because my ADHD would just be kind of weird, and then when it was a vision in my mind or an image, it would have a feeling to it, like I would just feel something from it, and that was how I could decipher between the two. So I believe anybody, even with disabilities, are, able to be a practicing psychic, or, practicing your faith by talking to your God in some form or way and still communicate to them. You know, I don't think that stops you from doing so. And I don't think that a hallucination means you're crazy in a sense. It's just something you kind of have to overcome, like anybody else has to overcome things in life. And it does not define you as a person. So just because I don't have hallucinations, and I want to make that clear, I just want to make it clear too, it does not mean I judge anybody that has hallucinations. I know a lot of people, and they're good, and they're brilliant, amazing people, and they're sweet, and they're good-hearted. And uh, I don't judge them at all for their disability. I judge them by who they are personality wise, and well, there's nothing to judge. They're good people. So yeah, I guess these are things about myself now that I've shared. I wasn't really sure how to get into talking about myself personality wise, or um to explain what kind of person I am. So because it's a little different than you know when it's you perceiving another person, and then when you're perceiving yourself. So it's like really difficult because I don't want to give people the wrong idea that I'm perfect, because I'm not. And you know when someone's talking about themselves, you could easily do that. I think most people are smart enough to know it's not true, though. But you could easily sit there and pretend like you're perfect, which I do not want to do. um but all the same, you don't want to hide good qualities about yourself if they're good. So I thought the best way to try to explain who I am as a person, for other people to make their own judgment of character, I thought that would just be best to describe things about things I've done, or things I do right now currently. One of them is, I admit, I'm very, very, very sarcastic. It's kind of my self-defense with my frustration, to be honest. And I do have spiritual beliefs that I practice personally that are for me, not for everybody else. Um, and I do try to do my best in this world, but I may not be perfect at it, but I do try to give my best. Um, so yeah, I guess that's about all I can say now, and I hope it was insightful. I hope it was, uh, I hope I said enough that, it might give someone a judge of character of how they feel about me. You may not like me, and that's fine. uh, you may like me, that's also fine. You may be completely neutral, like, I don't like you, but I don't not like you. So it's like, it's okay. um, okay, I'm gonna stop my rambling on now, and you have a good morning, a good afternoon, or good evening, and goodbye now. I just hope you have a good, pleasant day. Yeah.